Okay, it's 6:10 p.m. on February 29th, and we hereby call this meeting of the Charter Review Commission for Baltimore City to order. Um, this evening, we will have presentations from the comptroller and the council president with regard to their input for charter revisions. Before we turn the floor over to His Honor Bill Henry, we just want to cover a couple of housekeeping things. When we last met, um, the commission tasked the co-chairs with coming up with a meeting calendar, and we did meet and compose that calendar, and the staff was able to distribute that to everyone. So want to give my co-chairs and Ben the opportunity to speak to that, and also to field any questions relative to the last meeting and the calendar.
Reverend Little, this is Ben Guthorn. There are no changes to date from either of the vice chairs that have been communicated with me with respect to the calendar. I do understand that on March 14th, we will be hosting at least 3 different council members to present different ideas that they have and that they want to share with us, much like this evening. So far, I have confirmations from council members Burnett, Ramos, and Dorsey.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Guthorn. Commissioner Montes de Oca or Commissioner Boston Smith? Anything before we turn over to the comptroller?
Thank you, Reverend Little. My committee met this past Tuesday to go over our last 2 articles, and I'll be circulating an email this evening with our report from that meeting, and then also with an invitation to all the other commissioners to join us this coming Tuesday. We've finished reviewing all of our articles, so now we're going to start really honing in on the proposals that are pending before us. And the report that I'll circulate this evening has that list of pending proposals. So if anyone wishes to join us for that conversation this coming Tuesday, you are more than welcome, and the invitation will go around in its normal manner.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Boston Smith?
Would look forward to checking in with my committee next week, and we're all good. It's glad we got the memo out, and it's a pleasure to work with everyone.
All right, great. Mr. Comptroller, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to apologize. The decision was made yesterday afternoon for the council president to do this presentation on his own. And apparently the request that that be shared with you and your co-chair apparently fell through the cracks, and you have my apologies for that. I am here just to watch and listen and answer questions if necessary, but my understanding is that the council president is going to be presenting a package of charter amendments that he plans to introduce. And I have already spoken to one committee here of the Charter Review Commission about several of my charter amendment proposals. I was not going to confuse his package of amendments and my package of amendments. I thought that might be a little confusing, especially as there is not a complete unanimity of overlap in terms of support between them. So If it's okay with you, I think just to keep everything as straight as possible for the commission, let's let this be the council president's night before you. And if we should agree to be on the same page for a given package of amendments, we will come back to you together for that.
Okay, sounds good.
And Mr. Co-Chair, if I may, this is Aaron DeGraffin, right? While you were getting set up and introducing everything, I was able to get a hold of the council president, and there was a mix-up in his schedule. So, but I can present the council president's amendment package on his behalf, if that is acceptable to the commission.
Absolutely, absolutely. Floor is yours.
Thank you. So what I will do, what I think is probably going to be the easiest thing to do, will be to share my screen so that we can walk down a list of that package that the comptroller just described. And these are listed really in no particular order. And please, any commissioners, Reverend Little, please let me know if you can't see this or if there's any trouble with this viewing it at all.
If you can enlarge it a little bit, I think that would be helpful to everyone.
Let's see.
Down on your bottom right, Aaron, there's a little slide bar where it says 100%.
This one
And
here.
if you just click that, yep, there you go.
Okay, great. Is that better?
Absolutely. I think everybody can see that a little bit better.
Okay. I'm going to, let me just rearrange my screen a little bit. So I'll start here at number 1, which is just titled Veto Reform. This is a charter amendment that is already introduced into the council and pending, hasn't had a hearing yet in committee. And it makes 2 major changes among a few minor issues to clean up. It changes the time for a mayor to make a decision on an ordinance that passes the council, and it'll gives the council an explicit opportunity to consider a veto override vote during a special meeting. Currently, the charter allows a mayor to make a decision whether to sign an ordinance or veto an ordinance, or to let it go into effect without the mayor's signature for 3 regular meetings, 3 regular council meetings. The charter amendment would shorten that time to 2 regular meetings. So that typically the council meets every other Monday. Sometimes there's, like you'll see in this calendar this year in June, I think every Monday the council has a meeting, but typically it's just every other week that the council meets. So rather than having that go for over a month, the mayor's time to decide will be right around that month time period. And this amendment, like I said, will give the council the explicit authority to consider a veto override vote at a special meeting. In the current construction in the charter, it's silent on that, so it's assumed that a veto override vote can only come up in a regular meeting. So this gives the council the opportunity to schedule a special meeting to consider a veto override. And I think it might be helpful to the committee to just explain. I know we've talked about this I may have mentioned this in one of the other committee meetings, but a regular, quote unquote, regular council meeting is that set of council meetings that is set out at the beginning of a calendar year. And any meetings that come and get scheduled, subsequent to that are in addition to those meetings are considered special meetings. So there's sometimes when the council, for timing purposes, might have a reason to consider a veto override, before the next regular council meeting would occur. And this charter amendment gives them that ability and authority. And I'll stop there and see if there are any questions. I cannot see if people are raising their hands, so I'll just ask Reverend Little or someone to either call on hands that are raised.
Right. Yeah, feel free if you have a question for Mr. DeGraffenreid to pose that now.
Okay. Here, and I should say, of course, as if your questions come up, if we think of it later, please definitely feel free to ask. But I'm hearing none at the moment. Oh, yes, sir.
Let's go through the this page and then stop once you get through all of them.
Okay.
Questions people can pose those. And please, commissioners, feel free to also post your questions in the chat.
Okay. So the next is Board of Estimates composition reform. At present, the members of the Board of Estimates are City Council President as the President of the Board, the Mayor, the Comptroller, typically serves as the Secretary of the Board, and the Director of DPW and the City Solicitor. This charter amendment proposal would shrink the board to be the mayor, the city council president, and the comptroller, and would also explicitly state that a quorum of the board is all three members or their designees. As people may imagine, from time to time, some of the principals may not be available. And so it's important to designate a specific position to serve in their place in those instances. But it will be specifically limited to the chief administrative officer serving for the mayor, the vice president of the council for the council president, and the deputy comptroller for the comptroller. And part of the rationale there is that with the authority and the weight of the matters that the board considers, it's important to limit who all may serve in the place of the named board members. The next on the list is amending the composition of the Board of Finance. This will change the composition to include the city council president and the city solicitor or their designees to the Board of Finance. It will change the requirement for the appointed members so that the mayor, comptroller, and city council president each get to make an appointment to the board. So there would be a total of 7, where I think the present composition is just 5 members, and there is no city council representative for the board. And in this charter amendment, one of the appointed members would be elected to be the chair of the board, and another of the appointed members would be elected to be vice chair of the board. Presently, the mayor is the quote unquote president of the board. And we're changing that nomenclature to be chair rather than president in this amendment. Next on the list is to codify the Director of Budget and Finance for the council. This is sort of a reciprocal to my position as general counsel. The general counsel position was added to the charter as a charter position for the council, and the thought behind this is to also codify someone with finance experience and experience working with municipal budgets, in large part because the council has new budgetary authority that only came live in the last year. So the idea would be to have it in the charter that part of the council's composition will include this professional expertise. There's a person in the position now, and the charter amendment sort of qualifications are modeled after the experience that that person has, who's been really valuable to the council, especially when it comes to the budget season. Next is an amendment for the budget schedule. This will require the Department of Finance to deliver ordinance of estimates material to the council on or before May 1st of each year. Typically, the council receives receives the budget information, this ordinance of estimates material from the Department of Finance around May 15th of each year, which puts the council in a shorter time frame than what is reflected around the state and in other municipalities around the country for the legislative body to approve the budget. So, considering the timing of when the General Assembly session ends, which is very important to Department of Finance for creating the budget, the compromise that we in working with Department of Finance and as the aforementioned Director of Budget and Finance for the council, that the council president is comfortable moving forward with is May 1st for the date certain for that information every year. And the last on this list is a charter amendment to set a fixed date for revenue certification schedule, where the Department of Finance will be required to give a presentation to the council on the revenue estimates for the coming fiscal year on or before February 15th of each year. This is similar to the previous charter amendment. The council president's office and the Department of Finance have met several times to discuss this issue, and there isn't in the charter presently a fixed date where this is required information to come to the council, but it is generally available where Department of Finance doesn't have a problem or sees it well within their ability to provide this presentation, provide that information, and so wanting to institutionalize and set a regular, reliable schedule for that is the reason for the council president moving forward with this this charter amendment to make February 15th the date we can count on for, or the council can count on for getting the revenue estimates. And that is it for the package that the council president is pursuing.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. We'll go first to the question that's in the chat, and the question is that one of the proposals is to remove the director of DPW from the Board of Estimates. What is the reason for that?
There are a few reasons for that. One is that making the Board of Estimates the mayor, city council president, and comptroller is reflects, sort of mirrors the state's Board of Public Works, where it is the governor, the comptroller, and I'm blanking on the third member there.
The treasurer.
The treasurer. Thank you very much.
State treasurer.
And so I'm sorry. Pardon me. And the other rationale for that is that it will balance the decision-making power of the board, because as it presently is constituted with the DPW director and the city solicitor, the all of the contracts that go before the board, all the board business, are more or less more controlled by the mayor, whereas with a better balance, this balance anyway, it will encourage more collaboration.
Okay. Mr. Lee, did you want to ask a follow-up question, or was your question answered? Okay, thank you. Are there other questions for the council president's chief of staff?
Yes, yeah, sorry. Hey, Aaron, it's Matt Stegman. For the BOE reform proposal, does that also include an increase in the amount for contracts that would come before the board, or is that something that that you've thought about? Just, you know, you and I are both very well aware that a lot of the things that are on a typical BOE agenda are, you know, like small, you know, less than $10,000 contracts that are pretty routine in nature.
Yes, I'll say that's we definitely recognize that that's part of the the current BOE agenda docket. But this Board of Estimates reform charter amendment would not delve into that at all. However, I will say that there is there's some reforms on, changing the threshold for what goes before the board. That's a conversation that's active and in progress. And there's some, and that wouldn't require a charter amendment as much as it would be there's legislation that's pending that the administration and the council president's office and the comptroller's office all working on right now.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Comments?
Chair Little?
Yes,
Unfortunately,
please.
This is Kathy. I have a question. Aaron, what's the difference between a special meeting and holding a meeting like the committee of the whole?
That's a good question. It's really, frankly, so the committee of the whole is for the purposes of, all the things that really, matter to what I think would underlie your question is it's a committee. It's not even though it's a committee that is comprised of the entire council, it's not an actual council meeting. It's just a committee meeting. So, so a special meeting is a meeting of the council where they can vote to advance legislation. For example, this happens, it seems, I think, every budget year that I've been involved so far, where the council will call special meetings the day that they're passing the budget, specifically and exclusively to pass the budget. The committee of the whole cannot do that. It wouldn't be a committee of the whole meeting. That's a special council meeting. So, does that
Okay,
answer your question?
no, yes, it does. I just have the one quick follow-up. So can voting occur during committee of the whole or no?
Yes, because legislation can be assigned to the committee of the whole. So,
Okay.
for example, the most recent legislation I think that was assigned to committee of the whole, substantive legislation, was the inclusionary housing bills, There's
Mhm.
inclusionary housing policy bill and inclusionary housing tax credit bill. And those both were assigned, once they got introduced to the council, they were assigned to the committee of the whole. And that makes it the job of the committee to vote to approve or, vote down, that legislation or amendments related to it. So once the committee, votes that out, then it goes to the full council, which, again, it's kind of confusing because it's the same set of people meeting in the same space, but it changes from committee of the whole to the full council for a council meeting, and then the council can pass it on second and third reader from there.
Okay.
Commissioner
And-
Christian, if I could just jump in.
Yes.
There's voting in both meetings, but the voting in the committee of the whole is committee voting, as opposed to the voting when the council meets, which is voting to advance legislation.
Okay, thank you for that. I did have another question about the veto reform, and just for, make sure I understand. So the intent of that really just eliminates third reader? Or
No, it does not eliminate third reader. I'm glad you asked that question so I can clarify. The path that an ordinance, pending legislation takes is that it gets introduced to the council by any member, and at that meeting, it's assigned to a particular committee. So just to stick with the example we had before, the inclusionary housing bills. Those bills were assigned to the committee of the whole, and there were a number of hearings to hear different proposals on how that bill would work and how the law would work and all of the ins and outs. Took in lots of different testimony. At the end of that process, when enough people were ready, the committee voted on the bills, and that, when they voted that out and approved it, then it went back to the full council. At the next council meeting, and whether that could be a regular meeting or a special meeting, they voted it on second reader, and then in the subsequent meeting, they voted on third reader. And after that third reader, then it goes to the mayor's desk for a decision. This amendment says that the mayor has 2 regular meetings to make a decision as to whether to sign it, to veto it, or to let it go into law without the mayor's signature. So this doesn't eliminate third reading. It eliminates a third meeting for the council, for the mayor to consider action on the
Okay,
pending legislation.
got it. Thank you. That helps.
Yes, ma'am, you're welcome.
Okay, additional questions?
Comptroller Henry's hand has been up.
So in the chat, Commissioner Willis asked, have other council members expressed support for the president's proposals?
I'll say I'm not aware of any circulation of of all of these or a lot of these. I know that the principles of just about all of them have been discussed in one form or another. So these particular drafts have not been circulated for council approval or to sort of count votes, so to speak. But there's been support for the principles behind, I think, all of these. If I'm the only one I couldn't really speak to that would be composition of the Board of Finance. That's one I haven't been a part of any of those conversations, but all of the others we've had heard from other council members that they support these tenets.
Okay, thank you. Are there additional questions for Mr. DeGraffenreid?
So somebody else noted that the comptroller Henry had his hand up, and then it looks like his hand went down, but it also looked like his microphone was briefly off mute. So I'm speaking up for the comptroller, unless he unless all of that was normal WebEx stuff, and he is not trying to share anything with us.
No, Matt, I appreciate that. I was actually I was taking the chairs. I was following the chair's guidance, and I was starting to put my items in the chat. But if that's the preferred way for me to be conveying stuff first, or should I?
No, it's at your pleasure. Some people feel more comfortable placing questions in the chat, so I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that that was an avenue that was available. But whatever works for you, sir.
Oh, well, Mr. Chair, thank you. I can always talk faster than I can type. I did want to add a couple of comments to Mr. DeGraffenreid's presentation. First, I wanted to share both with the commission and possibly with Mr. DeGraffenreid, who was in City Hall at the time, but I don't know if he was aware of this meeting. When the City Council was considering his position, when the City Council was considering a charter amendment to create a general counsel for the City Council, George Nilsson, who was then the city solicitor, he came and testified at that committee hearing specifically to tell the City Council that they did not need a general counsel as much as they needed a budget and fiscal analyst. And his testimony went on to say he had made a point of researching several dozen cases in over a period of years where the City Council and the mayor's office had fought over something. And he said the overwhelming majority of the time, you guys are fighting over money, not a point of law. And he concluded by saying, you don't need a general counsel, you need is a budget and fiscal analyst. So the council went on and got the general counsel anyway. And as a former council person, I would say that the very fact that he did not want the City Council to have their own lawyer is exactly one of the reasons why they should have one. In fact, I want to be honest with you, I'm considering getting one myself after the incident with the city conduit issue last year. But the other thing is he did lay a very clear case out even before the council had the greater budgetary power that it does now. That there is a need to have dedicated expertise to make sure that you're having a good back and forth between the legislative branch and the executive branch. The other thing I wanted to comment on is Aaron is extraordinarily tactful when talking about elected officials, which I expect is just part of being well raised, but also part of having a good sense of self-preservation in a building like City Hall. To say that the mayor often or usually controls what happens at the Board of Estimates is overly kind. The Board of Estimates is, for all practical purposes, the mayor with a fig leaf. The Board of Estimates, as it functions, as it is designed, as it is written in the charter, the Board of Estimates is the mayor making a decision with the appearance of a deliberative body of important people. But the practical aspect is two of the important people work for the mayor. And in my lifetime, I'm aware of one time a mayoral appointee did not vote with the mayor. They got a stern talking to afterwards, and the vote was reconsidered the following week. And they were aware of how close they had come to being immediately let go. The council president and the comptroller are there to make points, give input, rail against the machine if necessary, and then acknowledge defeat because that's what will happen once the vote comes. The most we can do according to the rules is we can delay a vote for a maximum of 2 meetings, and but we cannot change outcomes unless the mayor's mind is changed. And so that, to me, is the huge difference that you accomplish by taking the mayor's designees off the board. Is you make it 3 equal weighted opinions coming together to collaboratively make decisions that are incredibly important to Baltimore.
Well, we thank you for that observation, Mr. Comptroller. Were there other observations that you'd like to share with us?
About the presentation as made, I don't. Well, I guess in all fairness, and I shared this with the council president, so I should share it with you. Having served on the Board of Finance for 3 years, I honestly don't see the point of putting the city solicitor on it. There is a lawyer from the law department who specializes in finance matters, who attends the meetings and provides counsel to the board. I think that adding the city solicitor to the board is just adding another mayor's person. And if the intent is to have somebody else there for the mayor, I would suggest it be somebody who has more to do with finance matters than the city solicitor, or it just be another appointee so that the mayor can pick another person from the private sector with that kind of specialized expertise. But it's not. I don't mean that as an objection to the idea of broadening the composition of the board, adding representation from the city council. You know, these are good ideas. I just, honest to God, don't want to waste the city solicitor's time.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions for the comptroller, Bill Henry? All right. Mr. DeGregory, is the council president sharing this information so that we'll know what the council president is working on through the council? Or is the council president asking that this commission would consider and or adopt these recommendations as part of its report?
More the former. He wanted to share this with the commission because he knows that the commission is undergoing its work in evaluating what and what parts of the charter to examine for amendment. And so I think earlier in this process, we had discussed with in these charter review commission committees, we had talked about trying to schedule times for the various electeds to make these sort of presentations for this purpose, and that's what he wanted to do. Not so much soliciting, support from the commission, though of course he would welcome that and welcome more input and examination of these charter amendments, but wanted at a baseline to include everyone here and make sure that everybody knew what items he was pursuing.
Okay. Well, we thank you for that clarification. It would be helpful to us if you or someone in your office would forward that document or some version of it to us so that we can study it further, and also so that the commissioners who are not present this evening might also have the opportunity to consider the ideas that have been presented.
I will commit to doing that, and as we get a draft of these that we can share, I will share those as well. So you have the details, more than just these summaries.
Okay. Well, we thank you very much for the presentation and for taking the time to answer questions and comments. At this time, we certainly want to open the floor to the commissioners. If there are other issues that this body should take up at this time or consider at this time, we want to entertain that. If there are housekeeping questions, we want to entertain that. And if there are no questions or comments or further business from the commission, then Mr. Guthorn, we want to give you and the other members of the staff an opportunity to bring before us anything that you think we should be aware of.
Mr. Chair, can I have a moment?
Please.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Stegman, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to, Matt Stegman, sorry, I'm having technical issues with my camera, but wanted to add to what Mr. DeGraffenreich shared. So think I might have been the first person to unofficially serve as a council budget director, and I think having that as a position that is provided for in the charter that has kind of some degree of consistency between council presidencies is something that's going to be increasingly important going forward. Just for context, for any of the commissioners who maybe are not aware or hadn't given a lot of thought, the city council this past budget year is the first time they've been able to use it, but now has additional budgeting authority to move money between departments, between programs in a way that they have not been able to do in the past. In the past, it was very much the mayor sets the budget for all of the agencies, and the council could cut but not add or reallocate funds anywhere. And now they do have that authority. So having some sort of professional staff with appropriate qualification is going to be really important in light of the council's enhanced role as a partner in the fiscal path of the city. So want to just say, like, from personal experience, that's a really important position and a recommendation that I think this commission should really give strong and positive consideration to.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Stegman. Are there other questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Montes de Oca, anything for us?
No, sir. It's been fascinating to listen, though.
Okay, Commissioner Boston Smith?
Nope, not on my part.
Okay, if there are no more questions or comments from the commission, Ben, we want to give you the floor so that you have the opportunity to share with us any housekeeping issues or other issues that you think we should be aware of. Ben, are you with us?
Co-chair, was that
Oh.
question to me?
Sorry, I was attempting to speak, but I was muted. This is Ben Guthorn. I was just saying that I don't have anything specific for this group. However, if the vice chairs and the chairs of the committee can just follow up with me as needed to update the calendar and to schedule meetings as they are called, please do so as quickly as possible, and also just make sure to include the proposed agenda for that specific meeting. Other than that, we're good. Thank you.
All right, well, if there's no further business to come before the commission this evening, we're going to adjourn this meeting of the Charter Review Commission at 6:55. Thank you all for your participation, and we look forward to seeing you at the next committee meeting or the next meeting of the commission. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Night, everyone. Thank you.
Good job.
Good night.